Let me start with a question I ask every married couple I meet. If you're the one who goes first, what's the very first financial decision your spouse will have to make without you? And be straight with yourself about the next one. Which week of their life will they be making it in? Will it be a good week? No. It'll be the week they're planning a funeral, calling family, and trying to remember where everything is. And what does a traditional retirement plan hand them in that exact week? A whole stack of decisions. I want to show you why that's the real risk, the one almost nobody plans for. You start with the money itself. When one spouse dies, how many separate things happen to the money and when? There's two, and they arrive one after the other. The first is the household loses one Social Security check. Two checks were coming in, now how many? One. The income drops, and it drops that year. Now the second is completely separate, and when does it show up? That following tax year. For the year the spouse passes, the survivor still files jointly, the same as always. It's the next tax year when they usually file as a single person for the first time. And what happens to the same income, or just a slightly lower income, when the brackets are that much narrower? It gets taxed harder. Now, those are two different facts landing in two different years. Lower income first, likely higher taxes right behind it, both on the same person. Does that combination have a name? It does. It's called the widow's penalty. And I want to be clear, is it only about widows? No. It hits widowers exactly the same way. And there's a second layer most people have never heard about. The Medicare surcharge that higher earners pay. It looks back 2 years to set your rate. Think about what that means for a survivor. They can lose their spouse, lose a Social Security check, drop to single filing, and still get charged a surcharge on Medicare based on which year? A year both people were alive, both earning and filing jointly. The bill's calculated from a life that no longer exists. Now, is there anything that can be done about it? Yes, there's an appeal process for exactly that kind of life change. And knowing it exists ahead of time is half the battle. Now, here's where this goes from a tax story to something much bigger. Ask yourself, who's making these decisions? Who is it? The person who's newly alone, a person who's grieving, and often a person who's older at the exact stage of life when this gets harder. What does research keep finding out about our ability to make sharp financial decisions as we age? It tends to fade. It's subtle in our 60s, it becomes more pronounced later. And does this isolation make it better or worse? Worse, because the brain does better with people around it, and a surviving spouse has just lost the person who was around the most. And here's one more piece, and it's the ugliest one. Who goes looking for this exact person? Professional scammers. So you're alone, unsure, grieving, with money sitting in the accounts that could be moved. Loneliness is the opening that they wait for. Now, most people hear these as 4 or 5 separate problems. The widow's penalty, fading judgment, isolations, fraud. Let me add another possible level to this. What if the surviving spouse also spent years being a caregiver for the now deceased person? Do you know what research says typically happens to the caregivers? A decline in their own health. This is worth seeing. Are those 5 different problems, or are they one problem showing up 5 different directions? And what weak spot do they all point at? The same one, a retirement plan that depends on someone making good decisions in the years when good decisions get hardest. Picture what a traditional portfolio withdrawal plan actually is. It's a machine that has to be run correctly every single year. What do I sell this year? When do I sell it? How much do I take out? Is this year's dip the one that matters, or do I ride it out? Who has to answer those questions correctly year after year after year, forever? The survivor does, even at age 85, even in the fog of the first year alone. That kind of plan leans hardest on financial judgment, and doesn't it begin to fail at the exact moment that judgment isn't there? Now let me show you the other kind of money. Which piece of retirement plan asks nothing of the person least able to give it? Protected lifetime income. The check arrives monthly. That's it. Is there anything to sell? No. Anything to time? No. Anything to second guess? Anything for a scammer to talk them out of? No. And if the survivor truly can't manage things anymore and someone has to step in, and that's usually one of the kids with power of attorney, how much simpler does their job become? They don't have to run a portfolio. They don't have to guess the market. They look at one number coming in and one number going out. That's the whole task. For most people, isn't that the difference between leaving a spouse protected and leaving them exposed? Now let me bring this back to where we started. Was the question ever really about how much you saved? No, it really wasn't. It's about what your plan asks of the person that you leave behind in the worst week of their life. A plan built on protected income asks almost nothing. It keeps paying, it keeps things simple, and it takes the biggest decisions off the table before anyone is too overwhelmed to make them. And that protected income isn't only covering bills. What is it there really to protect? The essentials, yes, but also the adventures and experiences that you spent decades looking forward to. And most of all, the memories with the people that you love, the ones that outlast every dollar. That's what we build toward. Not just income that lasts, but income that protects the person who has to carry on without you. And if that's the kind of protection you want for your spouse or you, that's exactly the work we do together.